Hey YouTube, it's ICU, and welcome to the 137th episode of Best Tech Info and Rumors. Alright, to start off, before we begin, I just wanted to say that Best Tech Info and Rumors will now be moved to Saturday instead of Friday. So next week's episode, again, will be on Saturday. Alright, and with that said, first up in the news, we have the iPhone 5S. So with Apple's next generation iPhone scheduled to be unveiled sometime in the months to come, the majority of industry watchers suggest that the iPhone 5S will either be available sometime this summer or later this fall. However, other reports suggest that the iPhone 5S, in addition to a rumored low-cost iPhone, will be released later than initially anticipated. Previously, an analyst at KGI Securities suggested that the schedule setback for the iPhone 5S may be due to issues with the color codings for the biometric fingerprint scanner that's rumored to be integrated into the device. And earlier this week, Reuters published a new article that states Apple suppliers are attempting to reduce reliance on Apple because they aren't given much information to accurately gauge the demand for Apple products, which undoubtedly causes issues for the suppliers. And in a sidebar, Reuters also implied that Apple's next generation iPhone may be delayed as a result of issues related to the coating material for the fingerprint sensor. It said that, according to a Taiwanese supply chain source, Apple was faced with the challenge of discovering a suitable coating material that did not interfere with the sensor, which again is believed to be the primary reason for this setback. And regardless of such delays, a Japanese supplier informed Reuters that they plan on small-scale production of displays for the next iPhone in May, with production ramping up in June. Now, of course, just be sure to stay tuned. I'll keep you guys completely covered on the status of Apple's next generation iPhone here on YouTube in this series and on Best Tech Info. I've got you guys covered on all of the leaks and rumors that will inevitably surface prior to the device's official announcement. Alright, next we have some figures for Apple and their earnings. I won't really go too into depth on this, so if you want more details, just be sure to check down below. I'll have a link to an article on my site. So Apple recently announced company earnings and various other financial figures for the first calendar quarter of 2013, which also happens to be Apple's second quarter of the 2013 fiscal year. Apple officials revealed that the company grossed approximately $43.6 billion, effectively generating a net profit of $13.1 billion, resulting in $10.09 per diluted share. Now, iPhone sales of 37.4 million units in quarter 2 of 2013 are down from 47.8 million units sold in the first quarter of 2013, but up from 35.1 million iPhones sold during last year's corresponding quarter. Additionally, iPad sales hit 19.5 million units in comparison to 11.8 sold during quarter 2 of 2012. Alright, next up I just wanted to mention one of my recent videos. So if you haven't seen it, just be sure to check down below in the more info. I'll have a link to it there. I recently did an in-depth comparison between Apple's iPhone 5 and the all-new HTC One smartphone, which I've got to say is probably the best Android device I've ever used. So if you're at all interested in seeing one of the newest Android phones on the market going toe-to-toe with Apple's iPhone 5, then again, just be sure to check below. Next up, following Apple's quarterly earnings call, the company announced their annual Worldwide Developers Conference, more commonly referred to as WWDC. Now, it's set to take place June 10th through the 14th at Moscone West Convention Center in San Francisco, California. And while it isn't customary for Apple, they announced that tickets for the event, which were priced at $1,599, would be available to purchase the day following the event's announcement at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Now, in years past, after announcing WWDC, Apple immediately made tickets available for developers. But with tickets selling out within hours in years past, it seems that Apple decided to go a different route and allow everyone an opportunity to prepare, effectively giving developers an equal chance to purchase their tickets. Now, if you guys want to know something crazy, last year, tickets for WWDC 2012 sold out in under 2 hours on April 25th. which up until now was a new record for ticket sales for the event. However, once the tickets for this year's WWDC actually went on sale, they were sold out in just 2 minutes. Yes, that's right, the countless number of eager developers were just swarming Apple's website preparing to purchase their tickets in advance. And during the event, Apple is expected to provide a quote, in-depth look at what's next in iOS and OS X. as stated on Apple's developer site. Now, as most of my viewers and readers are already aware, iOS 6.1.3 effectively patched a number of vulnerabilities exploited by the evasion Untethered jailbreak, leaving those who updated to 6.1.3 to be stuck on the latest firmware without a jailbreak in sight. However, as I've said in videos past, both POSIX Ninja and the evaders have confirmed that they will develop new jailbreak utilities once Apple releases iOS 7 to the general public, which again should be announced during this year's WWDC in June. Now, with even having answered why the hackers will not develop a new jailbreak utility for iOS 6.1.3, I'm still flooded with a number of questions on the topic. So essentially, iOS 6.1.3 is simply too minor of an update to justify the use of additional exploits that could otherwise be saved and be put to use for an iOS 7 jailbreak. Now, hypothetically speaking, let's say that either POSIX Ninja or the evaders released a jailbreak for 6.1.3. Now, Apple would surely patch said jailbreak with another minor firmware release prior to iOS 7, likely 6.1.4. Now, if that were the case, we'd be back at square one and the cycle would start all over again, as 6.1.4 wouldn't be jailbreakable on the latest devices. It's best, from a strategic standpoint, for the developers to wait until both new versions of iOS and new iDevices are released before pushing out a jailbreak that will inevitably be patched in a short period of time. Now, back to WWDC for a second. In a clever design as pictured on the screen now, Apple's graphic for this year's Worldwide Developers Conference features the Roman numeral that corresponds to 2013 as the reflection for WWDC, which is only fitting for this year's conference. And just to summarize, looking forward, it's not a question of whether or not a jailbreak will be released, but when a jailbreak will be released. And again, that should be sometime after Apple releases iOS 7 to the public. Of course, like I said before, just be sure to stay tuned. I'll keep you guys completely covered on the status of the jailbreak. I'll also provide you guys with some great coverage on WWDC 2013. All right, and finally, I just want to mention my most recent video, which is an in-depth unlock guide. In that video, I go over the 3 major types of unlocks, being software, hardware, and IMEI. Now, also in that video, I detail why IMEI unlocks are preferred to the other 2 types and how to go about safely unlocking your iPhone, or essentially enabling it for use on other carriers that you would otherwise not be able to use your iPhone on. So if you're at all interested in freeing your iPhone and being able to use it on other cellular networks, just be sure to check out that video. Again, I'll have a link to that below. And I hope you guys like this video. Don't forget, it's not too late to enter to win in my $100 Amazon gift card giveaway, and that will actually conclude sometime after this weekend. So if you want to enter to win, just be sure to get all of your final entries in by this weekend. And entering is very simple. Just be sure to rate this video up and hit that subscribe button, be notified every time I release new videos, and leave a relevant comment in the comment section. Once your comment's posted, you'll be automatically entered to win. And if you don't know what to leave in the comments, here's a question of the day. What most excites you guys about iOS 7, and what features do you hope that iOS 7 will bring to the iOS ecosystem? Again, just be sure to let me know in the comments or on Best Tech Info. And to be updated more often, like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, and add me in one of your circles inside of Google+. And until next time, this is ICU, signing out.